Am I worth anything or just this gown? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Spending time all alone, sending my songs to the phone, dreaming of a better home, while focused on trying to hone this craft, witchcraft. I hope the Bluez let it last. I don't know if the earth is painted.
That was great sounds of Watson with Outside on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Prestige, with my partner in crime, Long Island Rays, Elm City made, EZ Bluez is in the building. Easy, who do we have with us today?
I am honored, privileged, blessed to actually know this gentleman and to actually be able to talk. He is a hip hop MC. He is the owner of a record label. He is a touring musician, does it for real, not just playing one on TV. The man, the myth, the dude who was able to coin the phrase sad, fat luck. Ceschi is in the building, or his building, because we're on live. What's going on, brother?
What's going on? It's good to be here. It was nice to hear that Jose intro. That was cool.
Yeah,
it's that became literally our theme. Like, it actually became 2020's theme song, period, because everyone just wanted to go outside. And it's just been incredible to throw every single time, you know, and it's even better because knowing the connection now, because although I've known of you, the first time I've gotten to like sit and talk with you was because of Jose. He's like, hey, let's go out and get some food. Oh, do you mind if Ceschi comes? I was like, no, of course not. That'd be great. He's like, wait, you guys have never met? How have you two not known each other? Like, which as Prestige will tell us, that happens a lot. We've had a couple of guests on here and like, really? You guys never hung out before? Are you sure?
Yeah, I know. It seems like such a small world, but yeah, I guess for a long time I was touring so much that I wasn't home a lot, to be honest. Right. So that worked out nicely. That was cool.
Nah, and definitely, and obviously it was a fun time, and it's a pleasure to have you on here. But now, for the people who don't know, for those that are living completely under a rock, tell them a little bit about yourself, man. Like, what got you into doing music? Because you're actually a very multifaceted human being. You are an author, or at least a pending author. You know, you have a lot of different things going on, and you can tell it in your lyrics. I mean, one of the first times people have ever heard you was on on Walter's Born in the City. The images you painted on that track was so realistic, and so heartbreaking, yet still so blessing. What got your pen game to just be that on point?
Well, the story behind that track, if people are familiar with it, is that I had just gotten out of prison, and Jose reached out to me on Twitter, and I had been hearing his name for years, and I had never really met him. He's like, "Yo, can you come through, rehearse with us? Just come through." And I was on parole. I wasn't going anywhere, so it was just the best timing ever. And I wrote that song pretty much on the spot. My verse, you know, to the remix of that on the spot at a maybe the day before the rehearsal, and then went rehearsed with them. And yeah, it's about kind of my earliest days in Connecticut, and specifically in the neighborhood of Fairhaven, New Haven, where a lot of my family's from, and yeah, it hit home pretty. That's why I think it's just very raw because I lived it, and I had just been experiencing this coming out of prison. You sort of, it feels like you know, you've a new layer of freedom, newfound freedom, and your brain is very clear. I had been reading, you know, I read about 50 books and wrote a ton of poems, and had great in-depth discussions with people who had lived really complicated and fascinating lives. And by the time I got out, I think my writing game was stronger than ever, to be honest. And that's Jose happened to be the person to hit me up at that exact time. So if you want to ask about that story, that's how we met. And we became really close friends after that. Oh.
That's absolutely amazing. And it's incredible. Like, if you actually look at your story, you know, you've spent some time, you've made choices, you've made decisions, you lived the life you had to live, period. Because for survival, you have to make these choices, you know, and we can get into, you know, the economy, we can get into all those different things of how it does set us up for failure. You know, by not having a living wage, we are sitting more and more relying on the street economy. And because of that, then they create the prison aspect of it to continuously hold people down. And this is a continuous cycle, a continuous circle. And it's going to keep moving until people like you take that step out. And you went from, you know, being locked up to being a touring artist.
Yeah, and I already had
to being someone who owns.
The thing about that is that music was always my end goal. I always wanted to create music.
Mm-hmm.
They were just during the recession, I had a really difficult time maintaining that, and I basically had to hustle any way I could. It wasn't just marijuana or whatever. It was any form of hustling I could do, you know, legal, illegal, whatever. By the time I was actually set up by a rat and arrested. I went through court for 3 years, and during that time, I decided I was going to go as hard as possible in between my court dates. And I ended up touring the world during those 3 years, like literally the world. I toured Europe, Asia, Australia, all of North America, while I still could. I was thinking, man, I might not be able to do this for 10 years. So I try to take advantage of it. And when I got out, by the time I got out, my career had already, my fan base had maybe tripled, you know. So it was just that grind. It actually pushed me in ways that I could have never anticipated. So,
and it's really interesting because you hear these stories on like the Jay-Z level, on like, you know, the Biggie level, where it did start out as first a corner hustle, and from that to take that, I'll say illegal grind and spin it legally, to be able to, you know, I talk with a lot of people, and a lot of people, you know, will sit there and they've had to hustle. And then they say, well, I don't really have any skills that can translate. I was like, are you kidding me? Your hustle alone translates. You know about business, you know about supply and demand. You know, to follow trends. You know all of this stuff. You've been brought up on it. And that is a great translation.
Yeah, I was thrown into learning business and learning how to do my taxes, and learning how to balance budgets and market and have employees. I was thrown into it out of necessity, and it's been really helpful. It's been really helpful in my life. These are the lessons that we don't get taught as kids. Really, I've been privileged enough to have a good education, get scholarships to college and whatnot, and I still was never taught those things. I was thrown into learning them, and I'm still figuring it out, but I've learned a lot. And one thing I could say is that when I got out of prison and I was a felon and I was on parole, I tried to get jobs like even Uber driving or Lyft driving, whatever. And I was denied. And as a felon, I was denied housing, tried to move to different apartments, and was denied housing, was denied job positions. And I was like, what's the best thing I could do? I'm gonna hit the road when I can. Luckily, I had a very cool parole officer named Officer Watts. He at first I thought, oh, parole officers got to be like cops or whatever. They're not. They're like social workers essentially. And Officer Watts was about as cool as a parole officer could possibly be, and he would let me go for a week per month anywhere I needed to go to make my money for the month. So at the time, my value, my guarantees had gone up quite a bit because of basically because of going to prison. And so I would be able to fly to LA, do 4 or 5 shows, come home with, 5 to 10K for a week of work. And that was my money for the month. And that is how I made it work. When I was finally off of parole, I just grinded like a maniac. Just went on the road. I remember borrowing a car from one of my friends. And in fact, Jose was on, I think, one of those tours during one of the early ones right after I was off parole. And I went really hard. So, and I kind of never stopped until pandemic.
Right.
So.
And now, what has that been like for those at home? We talk about this pretty much every single week, actually twice a week now, because we are 2 times a week. What is it like going from that complete and total grind and being someone who is a hustler's hustler to being forced to put the e-brake on? I mean, you're going 90 miles an hour, and some random person pulls your e-brake. And you're just in a crazy skid. How do you course adjust?
It was a state of shock. It really was. I was out in LA. I was in a relationship and living in a spot out there with my partner at the time. And I was in complete shock. I didn't know what to do with myself. I felt lazy. I felt worthless. I felt I had at least $20,000 worth of shows just picked up and thrown away. And and then I had to figure out other ways to survive. And it was probably one of the best lessons I've had in my entire life. So
grew from that.
Yeah. And one of the amazing things that came from that is these incredible live streams that you did. And it's not just, what I love about these live streams is you could have easily have sold a ton of live streams just being yourself, but you highlight other artists. You give other artists an opportunity. You've given Jose an opportunity. You've given our brothers Fat Astronaut an opportunity. And it's an incredible thing to do that. And obviously, it's an ego-driven business, and you're not an ego-driven person. And I respect that about yourself. But what was it like to really get into the streaming aspect of things and trying to taking the live experience and putting it virtual?
I have to give a huge shout out. Oh, Preston, sorry.
As we stream on WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven, behind the brand, myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime, EZ Bluez. Continue, sir. I'm very sorry about that. I had to do what I had to do. Go right ahead.
Yeah, as far as the live streaming, I have to give a huge shout out to Nikki Anarchy, who's she's been working with our label Fake 4 for some years now. She's been trying to push me to go into live streaming for years. Really, she was way ahead of the curve with it, and I was always like, "Nah, it's all about the show and sweating and screaming and you know what I mean." I come from a punk and hip hop background, so for me, it's taking away that in-person experience was very difficult for me to get over. She convinced me because of pandemic, and it started with a festival that we did on 4/4. So shortly after it really got grimy, for the Fake 4 festival, she gathered like 14 acts that were connected to our world. Right. And I was pretty much like, go with it, whatever. I'll figure it out. And one of my boys who is a professional gamer, Mike Hayes, He's a super Smash Mouth player out from LA. He lent me a webcam and an interface. I didn't have anything in LA. I basically was preparing to move and go on a tour, and so all that got changed. I was thrown into it, to be honest, but that went so well.
Mm-hmm.
That one event went so well that it changed my mind completely. It then we started doing weekly Fake 4 Twitch programming, live stream concerts every Friday, and we haven't stopped. So it took a little bit of time to get the wheels turning on that, but since May of 2020, we've been doing every single Friday live stream concerts. And I realize, for me, you say it's a selfish business, a self-centered business. For me, it's always been a community business. Everything that I've ever gotten in this world has been because of the communities I've surrounded myself with, and people. I don't believe in the mythology of pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. If anyone could say use that mythology, it would be me, but that would be an absolute lie. Other people have gotten me to where I am right now, and everybody who's gotten anywhere in life has been pushed up by a community of people or mentors or friends, family, somebody. And it's an absolute myth to say that you did it yourself. So I would like artists to not say that as much, because they're lying.
And I don't disagree with you at all. When I say it's a self-centered industry, it is when those people hit that certain level, or even like coming up. And I came from a different scene than the New Haven scene. It was very much, it's all about me. This is what I'm going to do, and this is what it is. In dealing with some showcases where there would be a person sitting at the door, and as they take your door charge, they ask you who you're there for, and if you had the most amount of ticks that day, you got paid, and other people didn't. It be much like not having a livable wage creates a cycle of destruction. It's the same aspect, where your scene can actually eat itself alive. And that's one of the things I love about New Haven, and one of the reasons why I came out here to New Haven is I never felt like that. The first day that I walked into Stellar Blues and jumped up there to do, some freestyle with a house band, I felt like everybody this is just what it was, and this is what music should be. And it kind of gave me that feel of like growing up in the Haight-Ashbury, or being in the Philly soul sound aspect, or even, Philly with the Roots and Joss Stone. And, there is so much here. And I fight so hard to try to shine a light on New Haven. I agree. I've told the mayor, the only difference between Austin and New Haven is the city of Austin is behind the artists in Austin. And
that's so true. That is so true. We have, how many venues do we have? How many amazing artists do we have? How many scenes are represented? How many great shows come through town? Yet it's never been organized in a way where, like Austin, where they made that a part of their own culture.
Exactly.
Our culture of art has actually, in this city, is completely undermined by other things, especially something like Yale. I tell people I live in New Haven, they think it's Yale. They think it's Greenwich and Gilmore Girls. It's not that. That's not my New Haven. That's not my Connecticut. I have to explain that to my friends who think that we live in a different. They don't understand. They don't understand at all. On the West Coast, for instance, I've actually brought so many artists out here now that they have grown to love it. And so, but yeah, I completely agree. And I know there have been times when club owners, bar owners, artists have attempted to do things sort of similar to Austin, like similar to South by Southwest and downtown. And because I don't think the city did, because of the government of the city doesn't really back it, I don't see that being successful. It's not, you have to invest into our city in order to do that, I've actually personally tried to open cultural spaces / record stores / cafes, and it's been shut down by greedy landlords who are just waiting for that Yale nut to come in, that they basically will rather wait and keep places vacant and board it up and just wait for Yale to buy it from them. And that's how capitalism works, because and a lot of times capitalism will undermine art and culture because of profit. That's unfortunately that's how it is. When I go over to Europe or whatever, little towns will have committees of 20 or so kids that are funded to book shows and bring shows to town. Imagine just a small little thing like that. Just give it a little bit of funding to 20 kids who love live shows and create a promotion, a publicly funded promotions company to bring art into town to help youth have an outlet. I feel like New Haven, especially, we don't have enough outlets for the youth that are culturally driven. So it was really, really frustrating. You know what I did? I just went on the road for a long time because unfortunately, after being let down by landlords and greed, and honestly, I was trying to do some, I was trying to work with the city hand in hand in some ways, and it just was never feasible the way that. Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't actually manifest what I wanted to do because of the amount of money people ask for rent in a place that's vacant for 2-3 years or whatever. It was very, very frustrating. And as a felon on top of that, I wasn't able to get funding in certain ways. So the frustration was real, but I have a lot of faith and love for the city and for the arts community here, and I always will, and I always represent it wherever I am in the world. A lot of times I have to be like, it's near New York, but I'll never say it is New York, like some other Connecticut bands I've known. I'm from Brooklyn, I'm not from Brooklyn.
Well, it's funny because even in that New York stigma, I'm from Long Island, which I don't consider New York. I'm from Long Island. They're like, oh, you're from New York. You play in the city? I've played in the city, but I'm not from the city. I'm from Long Island. I'm from the safe suburbs of Long Island, and that's just a fantastic place to be. And
and no disrespect to Jose, because even though he's lived in Brooklyn for how many years now, he still represents Hartford way harder than Brooklyn. You know what I mean? Exactly. I'm talking about bands who say they came from Brooklyn, have just moved there like last year.
And that happens. That happens a lot. People try to, and Connecticut it's sandwiched in between these two meccas. Like, let's be honest. I mean, for the punk rock aspect of it, you've got Boston, Massachusetts. I mean, you've got everywhere from Dropkick Murphys to Aerosmith, came from Boston. And then you've got New York City that's got some of the best shows of all time that have ever happened. And Billy Joel sells out the Garden every Tuesday for no apparent reason, And then you have Connecticut, and they're like, oh, you guys don't even have a baseball team, and where's your hockey team and all that, bro? Why don't you just come down and let's sit down, let's go to a Fat Astronaut show and tell me that you're not having a grand old time. Hey, I'll even throw a self plug in there. Go to a Shane Penguin show and tell me you're not going to be sweating. Tell me you're not going to feel every single aspect of it. Go to a Ceschi show, man, and really feel that. I mean, you sold out the State House. And
and you know how many people from New York were there? Plenty. Plenty of people took that ride from New York.
Yep.
And they love coming to New Haven shows because they're like, people care more here.
They do.
That's what they say, because in Brooklyn, we have sold out shows and people are still like, and it's great. But and I love playing New York too, but I love seeing my friends from the Bronx coming down and being like, "This is what's up. This is what's up." And and people across the country being like, "I wish I could go to New Haven." Like that, that's a crazy. That's been a trip for me. That's been a cool thing. But yeah, I agree. I think we have a lot to offer here, and hopefully when things change and we could play shows again, we could build even more. You know.
That's
well,
it's. I have something to say.
Yes,
Please tell me what was it like being signed to Snoop Dogg's management team.
Wait, before you do that, I'm just gonna say, remember, we are on terrestrial radio.
Well, I was I think I was 23.
Yeah.
I'm 39 now. When I was 23 when we first got the offer. It was an offer based around a meeting at a bar with pole dancers and private bartending, and I believe Eminem was there that night, and it was the whole Hollywood game.
Only California, right?
Yeah. There is a certain thing that I've learned, and I have grown to love LA in many ways because I lived there, and I love a lot of aspects, and I love a lot of people there. But there is a game that I didn't really understand at the time, and it will like fish you in, it'll rope you in. And when you're 20 something years old and you got a demo and a dude that has platinum records on the wall is trying to offer you any kind of deal, it'll just snag you and change your life. And sometimes not for the better. So what my experience was that these people, his team, Snoop Dogg's team, at the time, I don't exactly know. I'm fairly sure the main person who signed us still works closely with him. They promised a lot. In the end, they were mostly trying to own songs we had written in order to license them and keep 90% of the profits.
Wow.
They were trying to master songs that were unmixed. They were trying to own every bit of our creativity and sell us in a way that was unartistic. It was cheesy, in my opinion, and kind of offensive because they would like tap into this like Latino boy band type thing, and it was like this really. It was really whack. It was really against our philosophies as DIY scene artists, and it really was. It was frustrating to be a part of, to have a deal with people who constantly fought against your creative decisions. That's why I created my own label after the band broke up. And in a way, I can't thank them enough. That's the reason I'm here right now talking to y'all and still in all the opportunities I've gotten with music is all because I tried to do it on my own after a bad experience. It wasn't because I got thrown some bone. You know, I was, again, just how parole pushed me to get on the road super hard, or court, or being a felon. Again, those negative experiences can lead to such wonderful progress in life if you let it push you and don't stay stagnant and wait for something to happen. So that's what I'll say about them. I thank them every day. Thank them every day for putting me through a difficult situation and breaking up our band. That was a beautiful band. And I actually love every member of that band. And I've recently reunited with one of the main singers who we had a falling out. We're all cool again, and it was just whack how business can pull apart art. You know, it could rip it apart like meat off of a bone. And yeah, that's my experience. I don't want to talk about the fancy stuff.
Well, no, it's incredible to hear, because this is, for those who don't know, this is not a new story. This has been happening in music for decades upon decades upon decades, you know, and in art forever and ever and ever. I mean, we can go as far back as classical music. When it was first out there, it was only for churches. And if you wrote in a minor key, the church killed you. You know what I mean? Like that's how real this, and that's how deep it goes back. You know, you had Sam Cooke who lost his life because he put other people ahead, because he would put other people on. You have Nipsey Hussle doing the same exact thing, and then having someone from his own camp be jealous of him. And, you know, all of those different aspects come through, and it's all because of the business aspect of it. Now, in no way are we, I'll say, defecating on business. Business has a place there, you know. Income. I'm
a business owner. I was kind of thrown into it. You know, I'm not.
Right.
But yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm not trying to. It's just about where do your personal morals. Where do you stand morally when it comes to your business? And in fact, working with Snoop's team helped me chisel out my own ideals for what I wanted the label to be. And I was like, wow, we could do this and this and that way different. And we could be really helpful to artists who need it right now, especially at a time during the recession, at a time when labels were closing left and right. We sort of started, and it was difficult. It was a difficult move business wise, but and we're still here, right? So.
No, definitely.
Have you ever met C.O. Double G? Have you ever met Snoop Dogg? Have you ever?
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, I know you say they didn't want to go too big into fantasy, but you know, I just interested. That's all.
Yeah. It's cool.
That's it, pretty much. Back to you.
I've met a lot of people. I've met a lot of people, especially in LA. I was just at Fat Mike's from NoFX house. Like
nice.
2 weeks ago, and I feel like people treat me as equals because I just don't get starry-eyed.
Right.
No.
I was poolside at his compound with some friends, and we were just talking as musicians, writing songs and sharing songs together and playing acoustic guitar songs and telling each other where the history of those songs and having laughs and that was it. It wasn't to somebody else they might be I don't know, crying or something because out of excitement, but to me they're just peers. Even someone I respect like Snoop Dogg or Fat Mike, I mean, they're peers. They're musicians that have lived off of music.
You don't want to get starstruck. I totally understand. And at the end of the day, they're just human beings.
Well,
yeah, we did get all these VIP tickets to the Hollywood Bowl.
Nice.
At one point, that was like a gift from the label, and we got to go backstage and do that whole thing, and it was cool. I mean, the crazier stories is that Snoop Dogg was actually, it was a development deal. So Snoop Dogg was actually, what I heard was that he was going to Sony, and I heard this from people outside of the label, who I really trust out there. He was going to Sony with our demo and being like, check this band out.
Right.
Now that's crazy.
Yeah, no, that's really one of the most incredible things. And I love how, you know, you've taken that negative and you were able to start the label. And that kind of leads me into this next direction. Do we have to pause for you to say?
This direction, Easy Blues on Behind the Brand on WNHH LP 103.5 FM New Haven with myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime, Long Island Rays, Elm City made Easy Blues is in the building. I'm happy to learn about this incredible journey for our guest right now, Ceschi. So Easy, take it back to you. Go right ahead.
What I was going to say is, you know, music has evolved and a distribution has evolved, and we are now in this stigma. And again, I'm going to say we are on terrestrial radio, so please don't pull a Vic. Can you talk about what it's like? Can you talk about?
I think we're very different people.
I got you. Can you talk about what it's like to maneuver while the game is once again flipped towards the industry and not the artist? Ooh, I like
it's
that.
been it's been fascinating and difficult and sometimes really frustrating as well, like this entire game. But you always got to pivot. We always have to be flexible and pivot, and that's just how I am with my ideology too, and just like the way I approach the world philosophically. I just don't feel like there's sticking firm and not being able to be flexible is a flaw. And I think when with Fake 4, when we started, we were selling a ton of CDs. We were selling thousands of CDs of some of the bigger artists, and if we weren't selling them, we were at least distributing thousands of CDs. The next years that followed, we started seeing the iTunes craze, because Fake 4 actually started in 2008 officially. So
Right.
So we start seeing the iTunes craze, and we start seeing, wow, half of our sales are iTunes, specifically our iTunes, not any other stores really. Digital stores weren't, there were a few other ones that aren't even around anymore. I think like eTunes or eMusic or something.
eMusic, yeah.
Yeah. There was a few. That was even more of a contender than, Spotify hadn't hit yet. It wasn't a thing yet. Streaming wasn't really a thing because technology of the players and the phones weren't really at that level yet. So it was really an iTunes focused market. That went on for years, and then streaming hit hard, right? The entire time we're pivoting from, I remember the first years we were still on MySpace. MySpace was still a thing. I'm a designer too, so I remember designing fancy MySpace pages for all the artists. It was like part of the deal. I would go in the back end and do like a sick design for them. And
I honestly missed that. I missed that so much. I missed.
Me too. I released a little.
It was today.
Yeah, it was so for musicians and artists. It was so in your face, direct. Here's my song. Here's my joint.
Yeah.
It put music at the forefront.
Oh, definitely.
The programming and the code of that of MySpace was garbage. It was very
it was frustrating.
But now I could say the same about Facebook in many ways. I think it's quite a garbage. As a software developer in my youth,
right?
It's a disaster. But anyhow, at least with MySpace, they put music at the forefront.
Yep.
But I missed that a lot. But those were the first years.
You don't know what you got till it's gone.
Honestly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Honestly, go ahead.
Those were the first years of the label. So it was MySpace, CDs. Vinyl was so expensive that we did it very little. I don't even know if we made vinyl in the first year, which is crazy because that's our bread and butter now, to be honest. Yeah. So then we saw the shift, iTunes, vinyl taking off again in a major way. We saw the shift to Facebook. We saw the shift to advertising on Facebook, which was wildly successful at first. There was a time with Facebook where you could put $100 behind something, get 40,000 plays on a video, and get had instantly with our just having our fan base sell 100 units through one ad. I mean, it was like really successful. They cut it off. They cut the algorithms change. We saw Instagram come up, which to be right now is my favorite platform because it's focused on tons of art, the visual aspect. There's a musical aspect. There's an interactive aspect. I personally think it's one of the better platforms out there. But you got to go with it. You got to go with the flow. You can't be like, forget this streaming platform. I don't like their. It's kind of like crypto. I'm really interested in crypto, and I was talking to my brother's father-in-law yesterday. If I don't see a coin in my hand, I don't believe it. Really? So when you look at your bank account and it's a bunch of numbers, that's just digital numbers. That's not real money to you. It's just a number. You don't have gold bars in a basement. In fact, there's no gold bars at the Federal Reserve. So let's think about the future. Right. There will be no gold bars holding that worth. There will be no coin holding your worth, even though it's a nice token for you to hold.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. That's sort of the way I look at streaming and all of that. We had I wasn't into it either. It's definitely a way that major labels have manipulated numbers. They've completely bought playlists, meaning they buy their own music essentially. So they're playing themselves millions of times, paying themselves a higher percentage because they have contracts directly with Spotify. It is payola. Any way you look at it, it's payola. Am I philosophically against that? Absolutely. And do I have to figure out how to play their game? Absolutely. You know, if it was up to me, everyone would have medical care. Everyone would have really proper education. Everyone would be fed.
Right.
Do I have to figure out how to play the game that there is right now?
Right.
This late stage capitalism game? Absolutely. I have to figure that out too. That's kind of the way I look at all business.
And for those who don't know, like Spotify in particular, unless you're using their form of payola, if you use, say, an outside source to help boost up your numbers and stuff like that, they'll pull your track.
I don't even know. Yeah, I could guess that, but they're in cahoots with the majors. It's why majors took a lot of the aesthetic of the indie world. There was a time when like Lana Del Rey was coming out and Odd Future, and respect to those artists, ASAP Mob, they were taking the aesthetics of the indie world, our world, and putting millions of dollars behind it. In fact, I remember an artist named Krayshawn who was kind of we know her ghostwriters and stuff like that, and he was part of our scene, the battle world or whatever, and she got $1 million deal because of a YouTube video. They basically would take indie type stuff, sell it as indie, sell it as DIY. Macklemore was a part of that too. Respect to him, but you know, and they would say, "We did this alone, without it, because of you, our fans. We did this alone, and the $10 million behind us, and the payola radio stations, and the payola playlists, and we did this alone." And so it was tough to see, but that's the reality of it. They won by controlling a platform, and that's, I don't know if that's the future though. I think in fact I'm interested in crypto a lot because I think that will be shifting.
Well, it's so interesting because I actually hear it in a bar, and I'm hoping you use it in a song, where you say, "We did this alone," where you can actually break that down to, "You did this alone."
LOAN.
Exactly. There we go. We're printing gold here right now. We have the gold bars in the basement. We'll be fine.
I saw something in the chat about seconds or whatever. We gotta do the.
We're copacetic on that. He was just telling Harry when to lead up to the next aspect.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I want to lead up to this. Just before we premiere your song, and we like to do the whole little outro and everything for the show. I want to know what it was like driving the German Autobahn.
I love driving. That's a great question that no one's ever asked me. I love driving, first of all. Absolutely. And I love driving on the Autobahn because people drive really well.
Yeah.
To get a license in Europe, it's thousands of dollars.
Oh my
So
goodness.
you got to imagine you are very serious about the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people drive, when they drive fast, they drive safely and fast. Like when they drive slow, they drive on the right safely. And, it's very different than these states where people are like on the phone, like feeding a baby and like eating McDonald's and like, it's just so crazy to be in a place where like everyone is driving well. And then that includes that 200 miles an hour on the Autobahn. I love it. And there's also there's a lot of construction all the time because it has to be the most pristine highway in the world, right? So when people are driving that fast, it's got to be pristine because if there's an accident, it's deadly. And so,
I believe it.
So there's lots of construction. There's these tiny parts where you look like you can't fit in the lane, but then you realize you can, and it makes you a better driver because you start, your hand-eye coordination becomes better over the time. You're like, oh, wow, I could fit in this tiny little lane. Like it's a half lane. They'll break a lane in half, and we'd be driving next to each other. It's a trip. It's quite the experience. Driving Europe.
As we shift to experiences, unfortunately, we're going to reach the end of the program, but we do have your song "Middle Earth" right now on the broadcast from the brand. But before we introduce it, please, the rest of the time is yours. Tell everybody where to reach you, your social media, any upcoming events happening in 2021, and we're going to lead up to your song. So the time right now is all yours. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, first of all. My name is Ceschi Ramos, Ceschi. You could just look that up everywhere. The latest thing I put out is an album I recorded when I was 23 years old with Blue Sky Black Death. It's called Deadpan Darling, and it's a bedroom indie pop kind of shoegaze record, more influenced by 80s pops such as Depeche Mode and New Order. It's not barring out like some people know me to do, and it's more my songwriting stuff. I've always been into every genre, so it's also produced by one of the greatest production teams in hip hop. I think they kind of created the whole cloud rap sound that was big years ago, but yeah, that's called Deadpan Darling. That's out on Spotify now. I have a recent 7-inch with my friend C.L. Hughes, who's from Bridgeport. It's called Poltergeist, and that's on Spotify as well. Not just Spotify. I don't want to just promote Spotify. It's on all streaming services.
There's numerous platforms, man. Too many to count.
Right.
Yeah, man.
We get stuck. It even swallows me, But yeah, as far as things coming up,
yeah, man. Talk to me.
I'm working on a monster of an album that's been taking me a long time. That should be out at least the first part of that should be out in November. I've decided not to release it all at once because it's so much to swallow. And the song you're about to hear, Middle Earth, featuring my friend Samus, is from the album Sad Fat Luck, which is the first album of the trilogy.
It's a trilogy?
It's a trilogy, yeah.
Awesome, okay.
So yeah, it's very nerdy.
Trust. When you talk about nerdy, me and trust you ain't. It's not going to be awkward between us. My man has a Boba Fett tattoo.
No, I gotta own it. Yeah, it's just more like I'm a music nerd more than anything. I just
brother,
love.
Who are you talking to? You guys? Did you just meet? Even.
What's does it say?
I don't know, man. Dust, did you mute yourself? It's crazy. Are you just in awe of excitement? I don't know what's going on. Technology just get into you. Dust, what's up? Because as soon as I talk Star Wars, man, he just lost his voice.
He's like,
it was just amazing. Amazing, Dust. And I still can't hear even.
Like Mandalorian.
All that excitement just cut his voice. Technology is crazy. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. But Ceschi, man, it's just amazing just like to hear your voice and your whole musical journey. And it's just a great experience just to learn. I learned so much just throughout this whole episode, brother.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Really.
I'm just a little bit disappointed. I'm just kind of like stretching out time because we want to make sure the audio quality is good for your song right now. But you're a music producer, man. How much input? Matter of fact, how many songs did not make the album?
Oh, I have hundreds of songs that have never come out.
Wow, man. So you got to vote.
Hundreds. Yeah, you can save that for when I'm gone. I pick and choose. A lot of it is self-editing, man. That's like, I think that's a big thing people don't talk about a lot. I believe that with writing too. I'm actually slowly working on a book, as Dustin sort of mentioned. I'm slowly working on a book as well for next year, hopefully, or maybe the year after. I'm not going to rush myself on it, but self-editing is such an important part of creation.
Of course.
I love creating and freestyling and just being off the cuff. But at the end of the day, when I put art into the world, I tend to think a lot about what it means and what songs mean to each other and how they fit in like a puzzle with each other. And that's the creation of albums very important to me like that.
Definitely. Well, we got the OK Go, Middle Earth by Ceschi Ramos. Thanks for being part of Behind the Brand. We love you, sir. And hopefully we get some time throughout this year. We'd love to have you back on the show, man. So much to learn.
Definitely.
Mind of yours. All right?
Definitely.
Maybe in the fall.
Dustin's back on WNHH LP 103.5 FM.
Slipping my way through the cracks, and I hope you don't overreact when my body collapses. I've been wandering, hoping to find my own place on this planet. I've been up in the middle of it, I've been up in the middle of it, in the middle earth. I've been nothing but real with you, I've been nothing but real with you. Slipping my way through the cracks, and I hope you don't overreact when my body collapses. I've been wandering, hoping to find my own place on this planet. I've been up in the middle of it, I've been up in the middle of it, in the middle earth. I've been nothing but real with you, I've been nothing but real with you, till the dirt. Is honesty overrated? How wanted to be a grunge singer when I was a child. Grew up fast and wild. Now the crow's feet are crawling all over my face every time that I smile. What you know about being decapitated while your body still rolls around aimlessly? Is there a way for me to face my infinite demons and maintain a sense of stability? Hustling for pennies like I was still 14. I ain't ready to grow up. Just wasn't made for these times. Realize I will never blow up, and that's fine. I'm not Cobain or Cornell or Lane. I'm just floating inside my own lane. Every word that I'm singing is plain. Just hoping that someone out there can relate. And there's times when I hate my brain, when I drive directly into trees. Think of 6 million ways to stop breathing when my heart is pounding from the anxiety. Every year it gets sadder and fatter to the point that you realize none of it matters much. For the minutes we have on this planet, we're seeking love, and that's more than enough. Call it what you want, call it God, call it your freedom. That connection between living beings is a powerful thing, and that's real to us. Slipping my way through the cracks, slipping my way through the cracks. Slipping my way through the cracks, slipping my way through the cracks. And I know she don't love me like that, and